Welcome back to another tabletop. We've got the IWI Masada in. Long anticipated. This was announced shortly before, I believe it was SHOT Show 2018 for the Israeli market or international market. But here in the US, we had to wait until now. Let's take a look. So, if you're not familiar with this pistol, it is a polymer-framed striker-fired gun from IWI, and I'm just showing you this packaging here because it's a rather nice box for a pistol that is supposed to retail 400-ish, somewhere on there, slightly below. And so far, just in playing with it at the shop, I'm pretty impressed with what you get. Okay, now we've stopped. I can move that tag out of the way. It did say stop. There's pistol. We get 2 mags. We have interchangeable back straps, 2 additionals, and the one on the gun. Our optics plates, because this is an optics-ready gun, and an IWI labeled trigger lock, all in a cut foam package. What I think is pretty cool about having cut foam like this is if you use a hard case or something like that for transporting, you can pull this foam out of the cardboard box that you got the gun in, insert it in your hard case, and bam, you've got your custom molded foam. As always, and to the complaint of many folks, I do go through the paperwork. So fast forward if you're not into that. You do get some swag. Got a little key fob thing here, or keychain, and there's a decal in there. The manual itself, we've got graphic, not photo, just black and white, but fairly straightforward, which is good since this is a fairly straightforward gun. Let's get this stuff out of the way and take a look at the gun. So here we've got it. Taking a look, we've got optics ready, seems to be polymer plates, and unlike other manufacturers, this gun did come with the plates for the different optics platforms, which is pretty cool. Kick the mag out. It does have ejection of the magazine, not just release, which is something I appreciate. You also have, if you notice, there's some cutout here at the bottom and texture to be able to grab on and rip and strip if need be. I always thought if you get to rip and strip, then you're not totally proficient on how to clear Type 3s, but that's another story for another day. Witness windows on the back where I like them to be. That way, if you're doing match or just want to check, you pop, and just like a tire gauge, you can take a look at the back there and see how many rounds you got left. Of course, the gun is clear, and let's take a look around the gun. Starting off at the front, as always, you see what looks like could be a higher bore axis. Now, I'm not one to really care much about the bore axis debate. I think a lot of people have been fooled by that. For example, people who think that CZs have low bore axi are just not familiar with the fact that the slide is riding on the other side of the frame. It's not magically lower, it just looks that way, folks. Anyways, so one point on that is this height, extra height here, might indeed be how they get a 17-round magazine into such a small grip size. The gun itself really isn't that large. It's plenty comfortable in size for me, and I do have large hands, but it's not obnoxiously large, which a lot of duty-sized guns can be. So back to the front, slide to frame. We do have a bit of play up front. Barrel locks good and tight. A little bit of side to side there. Not much. Looser tolerances tend to help with reliability, but of course at the expense of accuracy. We'll find out if that's true on this gun when we get it to the range. Very high front sight. It is dovetailed, so it can be swapped out. 3-dot sight system. We've got serrations up front for the press check for the people that like to do that. If you don't want to do that or think that's dumb, don't do it. But don't dog on guns that are ready for it. We've got several slots of pick rail up front here for a light or accessory. Texturing on the front of the trigger guard for those who like to hold up front there. And this nice edge right there to help keep it from slipping, which I think is pretty cool. Our controls are very pronounced. Takedown lever sticks out quite a bit, as does the slide stop / release. Good solid sound. Trigger's got some cool texturing on it. Don't know why, but who cares? The dingus safety in the middle is rather thin and pronounced, but I like that because I use the dingus to identify where my finger needs to be as far as getting it centered on the trigger there. So having that thinner blade is, I think, an asset for the gun. The trigger guard is cut with relief that lets even my big hand get on all 3 fingers on here nice and comfortably. No sharp edge on the far side. You can see that our mag release is ambidextrous, which is something I'm a fan of. I know others have complained that their grip tends to activate it. This one is rather small and stiff, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. But I like that because when I can't reach my thumb without breaking my grip, I'll just hit my middle finger on the other side. Or some folks use the trigger finger on the other side. Got texturing on the front strap. It's rather muted. It's not a very aggressive texture. Bring the camera in a little bit here, but enough to add some. Considering how easy it is to add texture and difficult it can be to remove texture, I'm glad they sided with the softer side. The backstrap here is interchangeable. It comes with 2 others, a large and a small. We'll take a look at how those fit in a minute here. The back side, slide to frame, pretty tight. A little bit side to side maybe, but not much else. Coming around the right side of the gun, and you can see we've got our full ambi controls. Let's do the test to see if they actually work. Slide stop works, and it works as a release. It is a little stiff, as they tend to be on the right side, since the actual catching mechanism is generally on the left side, so you're having a little bit of torsion happening through the middle of the gun. That's where problems arose with guns like the Remington RP9. Next, we'll field strip this and take a look inside the gun. So field stripping is going to be familiar for those of you that have experience with other guns. We're going to lock the slide to the rear and rotate this lever down. Release the slide, pull the trigger, and it comes off. Taking a look in our frame, we can see that we've got a full steel chassis here for the trigger. Trigger on this thing feels a little bit like the Smith & Wesson 1.0s. It's got, I don't want to say a squish, but there's some definite tension there up to the break. I'll show that more when I get the gun back together. We'll also then go over the backstrap fitment and changing. So we've got a nice steel chassis in there, keeping everything in line. Slightly different design than I've seen. You can see this rocker here. That's probably what lifts right there, which is your drop safety. That's what keeps the striker from moving unless the trigger has actually been pulled. Looking inside the slide, we don't see any machine marks. Plastic guide rod, captured spring. Don't see any machine marks, but we do see there's been some weight reduction cutouts in there, which is nice. Why have extra steel in there if you don't need to? It's got a nice finish to it. Not sure how to describe it. As you heard possibly there, Tactic Kitty also agrees that the finish is nice. It's kind of a grayish black. Got a nice rich texture to it. Let me get some nozzler match, and then we'll check our chamber support and take a look at the barrel. So as I pull this round out, reason why we use a nozzler match is because it's the most consistent and precisely metered ammunition that I've experienced thus far. The reason why we check chamber support, which is how much of the barrel is wrapping around the brass. This looks fully supported. Some designs, like the older Glock designs, it's not supported by the feed ramp there, and that can cause potential issues with blowout. I don't think, I've not experienced it, but if you're using a hot load with aluminum case, or it's recycled brass that's been recycled unknown amount of times, if it's going to blow out, it'll rupture where it's not supported. So this is fully supported, which is nice. Not much of a crown there, if any. But overall, construction quality and what you get in the box, pretty good for a gun with an MSRP as low as they're promising, which, as I understand it, is going to be somewhere around the low 400s. That puts this directly in competition with, well, it knocks a lot of the common guys out of the water. So there we go. Pull back and rotate that lever back up. Now we can take a look at that trigger pull. So we have a little initial take up, and it rolls. I wouldn't say it rolls, but it slides right into that brake, which is good and crisp. Reset is soft, but takes you back to the wall. It pulls through and then breaks. So it's about like your average striker fired trigger. Nothing spectacular, but considering this is a very affordable gun and a duty gun, you don't want a competition style trigger pull. So I've got a 1/16 inch punch, and these are the back straps. We'll see how that affects hand fit. So what I look at for hand fit, which I think is vitally important to being able to learn a gun and shoot it well. Not that you can't shoot guns that don't fit your hands, but if you want to shoot well and have a better time, looking for something that fits your hand is definitely going to give you better results. So with a nice high grip up in the tang there, can I reach controls? We can see my thumb easily goes past the slide lock release, and I can knuckle it on the other side if need be. My thumb can't quite get to that mag release without shifting my grip, having to release and kind of roll around, if you will. But from the other side with the middle finger, I can bump it. We also see that my pinky might potentially get pinched on a quick insertion there. That was a problem for me on the Glock 19, but just have to be a little careful. In fact, there is a little bit of space there, little gap that might help avoid that, but we'll see, time will tell. So anyways, that's how the medium that comes on the gun fits my particular hands. My trigger reach, resting, comes right to the edge here, and if I stick my finger all the way around, I can put a knuckle on the trigger, which is a little further than we want. Obviously we want the pad centered on the trigger shoe there. So now with the 1/16 punch, I'm going to knock out this pin and we'll swap and see what the others fit like. So I did that off camera because it's annoying and takes some time. That roll pin is in tight, folks. It took some serious whacking to get it out. Positive is that means it's not going to walk on you when you're shooting. Downfall is this isn't a quick change, but it really shouldn't be. You find your fit and you stick with it. So once that pin is out, it just comes straight off the back here. Nicely labeled. You can see at the bottom there, labeled for medium. This one is our small. I'm not going to put the pin back in, but we can see, looks like we have a little bit more of a curve on the end here. Maybe, maybe not. This seems more rounded. The rounding, I think, is a positive when it comes to concealed carry. The less sharp edges you have, the less likely your shirt is going to be snagging and sticking out on it. So with the small on there, it does feel narrower to me, side to side, actually. I'm able to get my fingers farther around as a result of this being less pronounced. My trigger finger, when resting, goes just past the edge there, which means I can easily go past my knuckle here. That tells us that it's shortened the length of pull. So if you've got trouble reaching the trigger, this would be a solution for you. I can get the mag release with my thumb without breaking my grip. Pushing from the other side, of course, is just the same. Controls more easily within reach. It does not fill this part of my hand as well as I would prefer. So that's the small. Now for the large, you can see immediately that how much more pronounced this hump on the back here is. That's going to be what fills the back of the palm. Oh, nicely, almost too much. That is big. You can see my fingers are now coming just to this edge, wrapping around. Trigger finger is considerably farther back when resting, but my default immediate finger on the trigger is right where it should be on the center of that shoe. So that's a good trigger hold for me. Magazine release, I got a brake grip to do it, or use the other side. So that is definitely larger. You can see it's even got a little bit of swell on the sides here. Makes it a pretty fat hold. I'm going to run it at medium so that Maddie can still use the gun. But I think if I was going for a gun that I'm going to be drawing from the holster quickly and taking shots, for me, the large is going to be the better fit to ensure that I've got proper trigger finger alignment there. So that's the Masada tabletop when we get out to the range with it for the shooting portions. Of course, we'll give it our what's for dinner and see what the gun eats as far as which rounds are will the gun cycle with. I'm going to stop on the hammering while you guys are still listening. Sorry about that. The recoil spring feels rather stiff, which makes me think that this is probably set up more for the 124 NATO loads. So it'll be interesting to see if it can cycle the super light loads or those low velocity super heavy loads. We'll also do, of course, 5 shots from 7 yards and look at field accuracy as it applies to us, and then give you our thoughts on that. Look for that video coming out hopefully within a week or two of this one coming out. We've got a whole bunch in store for y'all, including several rifles that have just been piling up. It's going to be busy times at GBGuns. Look forward to seeing you on the range. Thanks for watching.